everyone, Soul017 here, let me prove like usual, I'm not on this pictures, non-paid video, and, well, I made the thumbnail, so, yeah, here we go, a new what if. Why do I keep on doing this to myself? Joking. Well, anyways, so, figure out where I was going to go with this, and, a lot of people may hate me for doing this, but to be fair, the way how I'm making it is basically, well, you'll find out, but it involves Hestia and Belle. Belle just being angry, Hestia being sad, and basically regret her actions, but think she made the right choice, and many years pass, well, a year pass. Here's the thing though, slight little difference, because I think I basically saw eyes when she was younger, basically being in the dungeon. So that means to me it doesn't matter basically how basically old you are. You basically would, basically be in the dungeon even as a kid. So I'm saying this one, Belle's grandfather died a little bit earlier when he was about 12. So, basically though, he joined Hestia when he was 12. 2 years pass. His stats are not even 100 yet. They're like, well, they're just about to reach 100, but it's just, he's not going as fast. Like, he's going way slower on his stats going up for some weird reason. Which, in this one, there are some things that are basically happening. Like, Belle basically, parents did something, or at least his mother did something. And I don't know who his mother is, so I'm just making up, well, I guess, saying she knew magic and such, so she could basically have unique skill, basically of sealing magics. So she would probably have like a soul seal magic or something that would not allow him to become an adventurer, or be impossible for him to. That's all. So that's the difference. So that's why basically he doesn't basically get much of anything when he basically gets his status up. So yeah, that's a slight difference. Basically, besides his grandfather basically dying, supposedly. So, yeah. That's all I wanted to not make out. That's all I wanted to make sure everyone understands. And also, Hestia's not doing what she wanted me to make her do out of, basically, she doesn't, basically, she basically doesn't think Belle's basically useful to her anymore, or basically how she was, trying to use him, no. She basically cares for him a lot, and she doesn't want him to get hurt. So what she's about to do is what she basically is trying to protect Belle, because Belle has been getting hurt a lot, injured a lot, and I'll basically explain more. So yeah, so let's get into this video. I talked enough. So yeah, so this is what if Belle gained the mark of the outsider, part 1. So, as I was saying, Belle basically has joined the Hestia Familia when he was 12. And during these 2 years, Belle has gone to the dungeons many, many times. And, well, sometimes he has gotten hurt very badly because he's young. It's understandable. His first time in the dungeon as a kid. And, well, sometimes he just gets wounded a lot or a broken bone. He somehow survives. And overall, it's just, he's basically has been doing this for some time, to the point where he doesn't really fear the monsters on the first or second floor. And it's just become routine for him. But, how should I say this? Over basically these 2 years, some people have been, mainly basically, Hestia has been trying to basically not have Belle basically get hurt, been trying to basically give him basically, some advice of basically how he should basically not basically try to bite off more than he can chew, basically run away if he can, that sort of thing. But Belle does listen, and he doesn't, try to get hurt, but he does. And since he's 14 now, I mean, they haven't happened as frequent, but he hasn't basically progressed a lot for some reason, and Hestia thinks it's because he's not suitable for this at all. So she's thinking to herself, basically, while Belle's gone in the dungeon. She goes, Belle's not basically getting much Acelia. I think that's how you say it. But basically, I'm just gonna say for XP for now. Much basically XP. Every time he basically kills him, basically goes into the dungeon, he only goes up by 1 or 2, and this has been going on for 2 years now. I don't want him to keep getting hurt, but I don't want to lose him. I don't know what to do. So basically, though, she contemplates on her basic decision. Does she keep Belle in her familia, or basically cast him out, or basically abandon him, or in this sense, basically kick him out of her familia? He's the only one she has, but she'd rather have Belle live than die. She'd rather see him alive and well and basically live a normal life than die. In which she made this decision on basically the sake of Belle, because when he comes back in, he has basically, a claw mark on his arm, basically basically a bite wound on his shoulder, and basically a cut mark on his cheek. He goes, "Hey goddess, I'm back." And where she basically just shouts, "Belle!" And runs over to him, basically with basically gauzes and basically medical supplies, and gets water and such. And so she asks what happened now. He goes, "I tried to see basically if I could, get at least further into the second floor, almost get into the third, but there was some wolves basically down there that basically came from the third floor. I was able to basically get rid of them and gain some more valors, but I got wounded pretty bad. I got wounded a little bit." In which basically Hestia just would nod slowly, and this basically furthers her decision. He should have progressed basically at least in 2 years' time a lot more than this. So she does the status check, and Belle's stats are just about to hit basically H rank, but they basically they basically keep on getting lesser. Basically, it was like 2 to 3. It was like basically when he started out, it was like 5, then like 2 to 3, and then basically just 2 to 1, and now basically it's just like he's only getting 1 point, 1 plus in each stat. It seems like, which she doesn't understand why. So she just basically puts down basically that orb and such a magic, and basically show Belle his stats, which Belle's like, they're not increasing as I thought. Why is that? Which Hestia basically is not looking at him, just looking away from him, and basically she's not showing her eyes, and just say, maybe because you're not able to go far enough, because this is all you can do. Which Belle's like, huh? What do you mean? He goes, maybe you weren't cut out to be an adventurer, Belle. In which she's kind of trying to say in a steady tone, which Belle is hearing it. He goes, "Goddess, what do you mean by that?" And she's not looking. He goes, "Belle, I think..." As she calms herself, and basically she goes, "I think basically she shouldn't be an adventurer no more." Which Belle's eyes widen, and goes, "Goddess, Hestia, you're not saying what I think you're saying." Which she nods, and he goes, "You basically can't get stronger, and it doesn't... And I basically don't understand why. That's the only thing I can think of." Which basically Bella's eyes widen, so he just says, "So you're kicking me out?" She nods. She basically just says she hopes he can understand. In which Belle basically just is basically mind is sort of shattering a bit, because basically everything of his world is starting to crumble, as Hestia tells him to turn around, and she gets rid of her basically blessing, as she just Belle basically just kind of just, still there. She goes, I hope you can understand, Belle. Now please. As basically he, gets his things and gets out. As then Hestia starts to cry, basically in the pillow, basically, and apologizing to Belle, basically multiple times. As then Belle wanders the streets of Orion. I think I'm saying that right. I always call it Orion, something like that. Orion, whatever. And basically goes like, Goddess Hestia, you kicked me out? Why? Basically he can't understand. So, let's say this. A couple months pass. Belle has been basically using the vows that he has, which wasn't much, to basically stay in basically any inns that he can from time to time. He's mostly been living on the streets, and basically he's been going to multiple different, familias. About 2 months pass. And basically, after that, and people keep on looking at him, basically saying they can't use him or nothing, he's just weak and pathetic. Kind of like exactly the same thing when he was a kid. Basically, this starts to basically build up, basically, into hate, anger, as he basically is, thinking that basically Hestia, and basically blaming her for everything without knowing the truth, but he just basically is, angry with her for abandoning him, he's thinking. And, on a rainy day, this specific day, as Belle basically has been, it's basically sitting out in the rain, basically, with just, some type of cloth that he found that basically will at least keep him somewhat dry, but it still gets wet, like a blanket. And basically he's just thinking, he goes like, why? Why did you do this to me, Hestia? You were the only one I had left. And yet you basically just kicked me out just like that? He basically clenches his fist, basically feeling, the rage build up. As then he hears a voice like, hey, you okay? As when he basically looks up. Basically, these 2 months though, mentally, Belle has changed. So his basically wariness of people have increased because he couldn't really buy anything. He basically knew he couldn't buy anything. Basically, the people he knew, or he basically met for like 2 years, some did help him. Some. The other ones that he basically only knew briefly didn't know him that well. He basically knew he was part of the Hestia Familia. No word spread that he basically was kicked out, but people knew. Basically, the ones that basically, that were nice to him, not the gods, I mean. Most of the gods that he knew basically helped, and some of the Familia members even gave him some, basically any spare vows that they could from time to time, which were just the low ones. But the basically vendors that he knew, basically, they did help out. They basically did give him food from time to time, but the ones basically he would have known only for probably like 6 months, basically, and out of everyone else, did not help. And they said they would not help, because he has no money, and, he understood, but this, kind of just makes him see that people won't help you out. You have to sometimes do everything on your own. Basically, people would betray him, as these people have, but he couldn't understand that. He doesn't understand Hestia's reasoning, besides basically him just not basically getting, basically his debts aren't increasing fast enough. And, so he's always cautious around people now. He's not trusting as he used to be. He's a little bit cold to people. So when basically this girl with silver hair and silver eyes basically appear, or violet, whatever, appear in front of him, basically in that outfit, green outfit, basically, that looks like he was in a tavern he saw one time. He's looking at her, he goes like, what? He says it kind of basically in an irritated, basically annoyed tone, which kind of basically makes her step back a bit. She goes, you're out here in the rain, don't you have anywhere to stay? And he just asks, what's it to you? Why are you asking? Just, because it's raining, and you seem like you're gonna catch a cold. Then he just says, why would you care? Which she's just like, because I can? He goes, a complete stranger? Is there something you want from me or something? She's like, no, I just want to help. which basically Belle is seeing she's being generally honest, but then there's also an underlying that he sees but ignores. He just sighs and goes, "Sorry, I just had a rough 2 months." She basically would not slowly. She goes, "Well, you come back to my workplace and you can tell me about it." He goes, "Fine." So he gets up, and basically she can see, well, now see him basically, clearly he does have a dull look in his eyes, and she's just thinking, "What happened to you?" So yeah, so basically along the way she tries to make small talk with Belle, but Belle doesn't answer her. Basically, he just basically, kind of just walking around, just looking, and just basically, kind of basically trying to get a feel for basically anyone around him because of some people have tried. He's been on the street, been on the streets for 2 months. Not many places to like stay at. So some people have tried to steal from him. So yeah. So he basically has been basically uneasy around sometimes at night, picking places that many people won't really, basically think he would be staying at, which basically this girl notices. So, afterwards, when they basically rounded up the tavern, which Belle's like, "Is this where adventurers come?" She goes, "Yeah. You know it?" He goes, "Yeah, I do. I used to come by here from time to time. Well, at least walk by." Which she's like, "Huh?" So then he basically just goes in and such. Basically, Sierra would come in too. As basically, it's basically would be night, and, well, people. Actually, no, it would be probably mid after. Night's good. So there's people there. Mommy is there. Basically, Ryu and the two cat girls are there. I don't really know their names. I try to remember, but I can't. As basically, well, Mommy is like, "Hey, see here. Is this a new person? A new customer?" Where she goes, "No, it's not." Which basically Belle's just looking at around and such. And basically he just, sit down and goes like, "She wanted to help me. Don't understand why, but she wanted to." In which, basically, Mommy looks like Seer. She goes like, I don't really know his story, but he kept on questioning me basically why I was trying to help him, asking him questions and such. Which, basically, Ryu would kind of basically be a little bit suspicious. Which Mamma Mia just looks at him and be like, "So, basically, Seer basically wanted to give you something to eat," or she goes, which Belle just shrugs like, "I don't know, she just wanted to hear my story." She said basically when we got here, but she tried to make small chat with me. Which basically Mamma Mia would just look at Seer and she would just nod and he goes like, "Alright, so how about this? You tell us basically your story, and depends on it, I'll give you a meal for free." Which Bells doesn't say he won't take any handouts, but then his stomach growls. Well, he was about to, but then his stomach growls and he just sighs in embarrassment. He goes like, "Fine, I'll take some food." Which she basically, Mamma grins and goes, "Alright, so tell us your story." In which Belle just tells them from the very beginning. Basically, when his life kind of went down the drain was when his grandfather died when he was 12, him coming all the way here from his home village, and basically how he tried to basically go into the dungeon since he was 12 and up till he was 14, and what happened 2 months ago and up till now. In which Mamma Mia sighs and basically was saying, "Well, since you have nowhere to go, and basically the gods abandoned you, well, what kicked you out?" Which Belle goes, "Yeah, kicked me out, seems like abandoned me." Which basically, that was just kind of, well, Mamma Mia can't help but nod. And saying whatever her reason was, has to be a good one, which Belle just rolls his eyes with like, "I don't really care at this moment, or at all anymore. I'm done with her." Which, that kind of basically would make at least a few people shocked, but some people would just nod and basically hearing that saying can understand. Some people are like that. But to be fair, his story basically of him basically being, grandfather died when he was 12, had to basically come here, try to have a life. Basically, that life was ripped away from him. Now he has nowhere else to go. Yeah, some people can understand his story. So, yeah. So basically, Mommy basically gives him a menu and saying, "When was the last time you ate?" He goes, 2 weeks ago. All I've been doing is just been drinking water whenever I can. which that would just kind of basically make Mamma Mia blink, along basically, at least Seer and Ryu and the other two, and just basically tell him to order whatever he wants. So he orders basically at least 2 meals and a dessert, and actually just some water to drink. So after that's all given to him, and he eats. He sighs in content, basically saying he hasn't had food basically like that in a while. Well, actually in a couple of years. Which they just look at him and goes like, Hestia isn't basically the most wealthiest goddess, so I always have to basically try to get whatever I can just so we can have a good something to eat sometimes. Sometimes I technically have to starve, but hey. In which though they would, kind of nod slowly at that. Which basically Sierra's looking at Belle, and then she basically gets an idea. She basically says, Mamma Mia, we do need a new employee, don't we? Which basically Mia would look at, Seer, and then kind of look at Belle. She would think about it and was like, we do. We can handle everything basically during the day and basically evening shift, but we need a night shift person. Which Belle's looking at her like, huh? Are you offering me a job? Basically, Mommy would nod, and he goes, depends, do you want? He goes like, what's the job? She goes, dishwasher. Basically, he goes, anything I can get out of it besides of cash. Which basically she would nod, goes like, one room basically you can stay in. Basically breakfast and dinner meal. And basically you work basically from basically the time when it hits night. So let's just say basically the time is around like 6 or something. Until when we close. How's that? But she just thinks about it, goes like, got nothing better to lose, so why not? And so, in these 2 months, basically Belle being basically homeless, and only just scrounging around for food, now has a job. Now we skip to basically a year later. During this year, Belle has, drastically changed. He's, like I said, he's been more cautious, not trusting of others, but he has gained a little bit aggression, a little bit more. He's basically been letting his anger basically fuel him sometimes. He has gotten into a lot of fights with people, which are adventurers who basically have mocked him or something. Because basically basically no one really spread it, but just some people were talking about it, and that basically made some adventurers tell people. So yeah. And some adventurers mocked him and such, others didn't. He fought the ones that mocked him. The ones that didn't, basically he fought with still. And some, though, actually the ones that didn't mock him, didn't hate him. But they basically, some of them actually gained some basically respect for Belle. Because Belle has been still trying to find basically a familiar that would take him in. Also, he's been training himself, physically. And basically, some adventurers have actually given Belle some advice. So Belle has basically worked on his, self-improvement on himself for a while. And so, basically, Belle has become physically, different. He has become more muscular. Not basically overzealous. I mean, not overzealous. I mean, what was that word? He didn't basically go overboard. There we go. He didn't go overboard on it. I don't know why those came into my head. Meh. Probably just my mind's working fast. He didn't go overboard on basically the muscle. He basically wanted to still be fast and basically quick. He wanted to focus more on speed than anything. But he does have power in his strikes. He didn't trust some adventurers that basically gave him some advice, especially a book on things on how to basically use some weapons. He basically never really cared for that, but he did listen to the advice on how to basically improve himself physically, and basically a workout regimen that someone in a familiar gave him because he fought them, and they noticed he was lacking in power. He had mostly speed, so they thought of something that could help him. This was a familiar that he didn't even know, he didn't even basically went to yet. It's just they were just helping him. I'm just saying there's basically there's everywhere basically there's some good and bad, and there's some basically that don't care for themselves, or like the help. I'm gonna say this particular members actually had a friend that was basically abandoned by somebody, and they changed completely, and they can see that, and they basically tried to help out their friend, but they just went missing. So these people, swore if they were basically could help someone out like that, they would this time, and that's why they're helping out Belle. So, but Belle, being cautious and not trusting in people anymore, and not easily fooled, was not really thinking that it would work. But he notices results in his basically 3 months of, basically his second month of trying it, in which, that's why he kept on doing it. And so, in that year also, for Eyes, she became level 6, but nothing else happens. Just that particular moment happens for her. While Hestia, when Belle basically, was out on the street, and basically when he was basically working at the tavern, for those basically, let's say, basically, her 6 months, she found two people that came into Orion, and they wanted to join Familia, but no one, like Belle, they didn't want to take them in. Well, because they basically didn't think nothing of them, but Hestia took them in, and they sort of basically went around different cities and places, helping out people with certain problems that basically some people didn't want to didn't know about, or basically wanted to even tried to basically even do it. Well, basically they basically did it, and they didn't really basically care if it was like for money or what. They just knew the problem was needed to be done. They done it, and they got rid of the problem. Give me a minute. So yeah, basically right away they already had the skill at level 1, just call him Monster Hunter, in which she basically goes, "Wait, you hunted monsters?" He goes, "Yeah. I mean, me and my bro here basically been hunting monsters since we were basically little. We were trying to do it. So we ran around and just did what we did. We got money, sometimes paid for it. We didn't really need it, but we got it. We basically sold some monster parts, basically got some basically cash for it. Which basically the other bird was like, yeah. So, I don't know the names, but I'll just say Bro 1 is basically the oldest, while Bro 2 is the youngest, but they're only basically like maybe basically a year apart. No, 4 years apart. That's all. So, in a sense, basically Hestia would nod and basically hope for basically these two basically could actually handle the dungeon, in which they already had their equipment on them, and basically so when they went into the dungeon, they were basically doing a really good job. The stats though weren't high. Basically, they were like H level, so when they went in, it was kind of easier for the first 2 floors. Third and fourth floor was kind of a little bit difficult, but they got through, but then stopped. They knew basically when there was a limit. So yeah. In that year, they did basically get some headway in going down to the 10th floor. While Bill was basically, like I said, doing fighting, training himself physically, kind of basically getting over his hate, basically his hatred of Hestia Familia. He basically heard about it, but then he kind of decided, be like, there's no point in basically hating those two members of Hestia's Familia. My beef is with Hestia, not her. So yeah, he also met the Loki Familia and many different people. People knew him at the tavern. Basically, they basically enjoyed his company sometimes, but Bell was always basically putting up walls, basically, so no one got close to him. And those are basically the customers. Now, for the tavern, basically employees and the owner, no, they got close. Mamma Mia became like a mother figure. She basically kept on basically fussing over Bell sometimes when he got hurt, or basically when he came back bruised. Ryu basically, telling him he shouldn't basically go out fighting, while Seer basically always was the second fussy person about him basically being hurt. while the two cat girls just always teased him about basically how he's trying to get stronger, and maybe he should basically, try to learn something basically for self-defense, which Bell just always rolls his eyes, figuring them figuring them basically just are knowing that they're teasing him. And Seer did help him in this year to, well, understand when people are basically trying to lie to him, manipulate him, or use him. And along with Ryu, basically also gave him some advice on hand-to-hand combat, which helped, along with basically telling him that he should basically not always be over cautious about people. Which Bell just sort of ignored it, but not really. But now, we basically are going. But no, I'm just gonna say this though. Everything that happens in the anime is taking a year later, so that's why I said a year, because I wanted Bell to improve himself physically. So when he goes into the dungeon, he's, well, a lot stronger. But yeah. So now we're just going to Bell when his shift is over. He's basically, already did all his job. He's gonna basically just go to sleep tonight. But he hears a knock on the door. Basically, he tells him to come in. He sees it's Seer. He goes, "Oh, Seer. Hey." She goes, "Hi, Belle." He goes, "So, I thought you were basically going to go home." She goes, "Well, I was, but I wanted to talk to you about something." Which she basically asks if she can sit down next to him, and he does nod. Which he does. She goes, "You're still looking to join a familia?" Which basically Belle just sighs and be like, "I gave up basically 2 months ago. I'm not gonna try no more." She goes, "Okay, which familia do you try to go to?" He named everyone he could. She goes, "Then why you didn't try the Loki of the Freya familia?" He goes, which he just laughs a bit. He goes, "Sorry, it's just, why would the Loki familia basically take in someone like me? And basically, would basically Freya herself even take in basically me? I'm basically someone who can't basically increase his basically stats up fast enough. So it just happens all over again, I realize." She basically understands what Bells means. He'll be, thrown out, just like what Hestia did. In which, basically, she kind of takes a deep breath in and out, and just says, "What happens if I told you Freya would not send you away?" Which, basically, Belle looks at her, basically confused. He's like, "Huh? How do you know that?" She goes, "Well, I need to close your eyes." As she stands up, basically walking right in front of him, he goes, "Seer, I don't," as then she tells him to close his eyes. As he just basically sighs, like, "Fine, but if this is some sort of prank you're doing again on me, it's not gonna be funny." As then basically, he basically closes his eyes, and then all of a sudden, the voice changes and tells him to open them. He opens his eyes immediately and basically sees Freya, and then he just gets up and he goes like, "Where's Seer? What have you done with her?" In which, basically, Freya would just look at him with a sorrow look in her eyes and goes, "Belle, it's me. It's Seer." He goes, "Wait, no. No. You're lying. You must have done something to Seer." She goes, "Belle, allow me to explain. Please sit down." In which he's taking a slowly sit down, looking at her with a cautious look. In which, yeah, that kind of hurts her a bit, but understandable. He's being aware of everyone, and basically now she just appears as Freya in front of him. She understands. This is sort of like a cautious moment. So she just takes basically a moment to look at him, just try to get her thoughts, and she's already decided. She just says, "Okay, allow me to basically explain from, well, the beginning, and the reason why I basically come here as Seer." And so she explains how she basically, her true intentions, the reasonings, basically, if I'm correct, probably not. But basically her canon reason, her other reason, basically, if I remember correctly, what I think it is, or what I heard was, because she just wanted to be amongst the people, not be a god or have her godly duties, but just be like a normal person and just basically do whatever basically you do, live amongst them, not basically being worshipped, just being known as Freya, nothing else. And that basically being a seer was her only way of doing this. Which Bell just kind of blinking, he goes, "So what? You just helped me because of some sick joke you wanted to do? Because you thought it'd be funny just to basically watch me basically, do everything like and try to basically be also failing to get just to basically get into a familia?" Which she nods no. She basically just says, "I wanted to help you because I wanted to. That is true. I basically didn't offer you this because, well, at the time you basically didn't want to basically. Actually, basically, how can I say this? You're trying to do everything on your own and still are, but you just didn't want to open up to anybody. And basically, your feelings towards Hestia were basically well known. So I didn't want to bring it up." So basically, Bell's just kind of, looking at her and basically just then takes one quick thought of basically how she's not lying and the fact she's being truthful. And so he just kind of lets his guard down slightly. He goes, "So you genuinely wanted to help me?" She nods. "You want me to join your familia even though basically my stats are, will only increase by so much, which ain't basically exactly the same as normal people." She would nod again. She basically says, "I think there's a reason because of that, but I'm not too sure. I do have to look through some things, but I think there's a way we can find out." But she just nods slowly. And then he goes, "But why did you want me to join so bad, like your familia? What's the point? I'm basically, worthless to most people." Which she just says immediately, "You're not worthless. You are basically Belle Cornell. Even though you have changed, you are still basically Belle." She wants him to join because basically she generally wants him to be happy. If he wants to become an adventurer so badly, then she's going to offer it to him and help him the best way she can. And so, she just saying, and then she goes on and say this. "Val, I'm just going to let you think this over, alright? I'll give it a day for you basically to think of my offer. So please think about it." In which Belle just kind of blinking. And you can basically see that she really wants him to think about it, so he just sighs and be like, "Fine. I'm only doing this because you're seer. That's all. If you were basically just came to me as Freya, I would have basically told you to, get lost." In which she nods. She basically thanks him, and she does go down and sits, basically. He's just basically looking at her with, a look saying, "What are you doing?" until she hugs him. In which, basically, he's just basically in pure shock, and not understanding why she's hugging him, but then remember, she's seer. She always hugs him for some reason. And so, yeah. He hugs her back, and basically she tells him a good night. Which Bella just says, "Night." Basically, she turns off basically the lantern that had the light, and just, when basically Freya comes out, she sees Mom Mia and Otar, which Mia basically asks, "Was that wise?" Which basically Freya does says this. "He didn't take it well at first, but I think he basically understands that I wasn't trying to trick him." Otar just basically says, "So, you finally revealed it, Goddess Freya, and offer him?" But she nods. In which he basically just says, "Alright, if he accepts, then what's the plan?" She goes, "I have a few things that could basically work out, but we have to figure out what's wrong with him. Because no one should be able to basically have low, basically, Excelia basically going to him unless there's something wrong with him." Which then Mom Mia just says, basically, or as basically Goddess Freya, not Freya, Goddess Hestia says he's not basically suitable for this. In which Freya just looks at her and just kind of chuckles, but then says, "Oh, trust me. He has potential basically to go far, but something's holding that back, and his potential's being wasted. I don't want that, and I want him to succeed his dream." Which basically Mamio and Nagi was like, "I do too. I don't want him to get hurt in the dungeon, but I want him to basically fulfill his dream like anyone else would." Which basically Freya would just chuckle at her, goes like, just looking at Mia, just says, "It sounds like you're becoming basically a mother to him." Which basically Mia kind of blushes and looks away and says, "Well, he said he never had a mother or father, so someone has to be a mother figure for him." In which Freya would nod, and saying she'll basically be back tomorrow, as Freya, not as Seer. In which she nods in understanding. Now, give me a minute real quick. Alright, so basically, as Freya leaves, Mia basically looks at basically Belle's room and just sighs and says to herself, "I hope you basically choose basically what you think is right, Belle, and not just what you want." So yes, basically she leaves and, shop gets closed. In which, that night, Belle does basically start to, dream. But this dream is weird. He opens up his eyes and he looks around. He goes, Where am I?" As then he hears a voice. He goes, "Belle Cronell." A boy who basically came to be an adventurer who fought for 2 years and was kicked out by said guys who he was basically ready to give up everything for, to basically for taking him in and basically giving him hope. And yet his story was cut short and tragic. Which basically Belle's looking around and goes like, "Where are you? Who's there?" In which basically someone appears and Belle's looking at this person. He goes like, who's floating in the air. He was like, "Are you a god?" Which basically the man chuckles and goes, "No, my dear boy. I am an outsider. I watched this world for so long, 50 years. And, well, no one's caught my interest at all. Only you did." Which Belle's looking at him like, "Wait, 50 years?" He goes, "Yes." Which basically Belle says, "Then you should be old?" He would basically say, which Belle would not. He was like, "Allow me to explain." As then basically he explains basically what has happened to him. And basically the first 2 games and the Death of the Outsider game. And say they basically, in this basically new world I was brought to upon my death, I've been basically stuck watching everything from the void. Not understanding at first, but then I did. When I saw the gods appear, that's when I was thinking basically trying to find someone interesting to give my power to. Well, he goes, "Wait, power?" He goes, "My gift. That's all." Which Belle's kind of blinking. He goes, "Then did you?" Which he nods no. He goes, "The gods would have noticed. And at that time, it would have been basically wrong and basically uninteresting just to give someone my gift. But after years of watching, and basically figure out basically this world, I conclude basically someone that I think will be interesting enough to entertain me, that I could watch throughout this journey, would basically arise. And it basically catch my interest." Basically, Belle's being quiet, and basically the outsider was saying, and unfortunately, no one did. Until now. Which Belle's like, "Wait, you mean..." "Yes. You have caught my interest, Belle Cronell. You see, I'm interested," as he basically would float down to Belle and then basically step on the ground and walk basically around him, saying this. "I'm interested in your fate. Things have changed drastically. On that day, you would have basically, or you were kicked out, you would have basically you would have met somebody." Which Belle is just blinking. He goes, "Wait, what? What do you mean I will met someone?" He was like, "Yes, you will have met someone." And basically the image is shown of basically Belle running away from the Minotaur, basically Minotaur blood and basically eyes violence scene being shown. And basically then Bell gained a skill, Realis Freeze. Basically Bell's like, what does that? He goes, Realis Freeze. Basically, you could say it's one one like tunnel vision. You only want to focus on one thing, and basically only that thing, and basically determination by it. It basically reacts to your feelings. That's basically what I think of it. Because, as then he basically shows Belle's rapid growth rate. Everything that has happened, and basically Belle just like, at the end, basically probably like, I would say when he hits level 3, he goes like, he just looks at the outside, we're like, so all because I leveled up so quick, well, my stats go up so quickly is because of that one basically skill, and it's because I wanted to become strong as basically Alice Wallenstein. Which, basically he nods, he goes like, was I a simp? He goes, yes, but the good kind. Which Belle just sighs and be like, I'm disappointed. A little bit. He goes, but why did that change? Why didn't I meet the Minotaur? He goes, well, you would have gone down to level 4, and basically you would have met that. But Eyes and basically the Loki Familia basically took care of all the Minotaurs. No one got hurt. And, well, you basically were kicked out. But that's also due to another unfortunate circumstance that has happened to you. As then we will see basically Belle, who was just basically probably like a month old, his basically father and mother, who are not faces are not being shown, but their voices are being heard, basically talking to someone, as in they basically just plead and goes like, please, Lord Zeus, please take our child. Which Zeus is just looking at them and goes like, I cannot. Must go fight with basically everyone else, which basically the woman asks, please, just take Belle. And basically would run with him and such. They're asking him to basically guard him while basically they take care of basically the Loki and Freya familia that's attacking. I think it was basically they both, if I read it correct, or if I heard correctly from some things, like I basically watched like some explanations videos, and I think it was a while back, but let's just say this, if it is Loki and Freya, basically familia attacking, then yeah, but if it's also basically some other familias, then that's just in this one, other familias too, are attacking the Hera and basically Zeus familia, which basically which basically the man who was basically in the, Zeus familia begs his basically god to please guard his basically child, in which Zeus would basically clench his fist and nod, because basically this one person has done a lot for basically him and his familia, and basically they said as long as Zeus lives, basically the familia will grow once again. So yeah, so basically he takes basically Belle, as the mother goes like, wait. And so basically Zeus is wondering what, and then she activates her magic, and basically all of a sudden a seal will appear on Belle, but not on him, but it looks like a transparent basically version of him, which Zeus says, you sealed his soul. She nods and basically goes, if he ever tried to become an adventurer, he can't be. We don't want him basically to become one, and have to deal with basically the hardships we had to deal with, and this. Which basically the father basically nods and says, we agreed to this. We want to protect our son no matter what. Which basically Zeus would just kind of blink and then just saying, but what happens if he tries to? Then basically the mother says he will never grow strong. In that, physically wise he would be, but overall, if he gets a status, they won't basically increase by much. The seal will basically prevent it. Which Zeus just sighs, goes like, well, Belle, it looks like me and you are going to basically start it, to be family. As then Zeus leaves, and basically Belle just eyes widen because the images disappear. He goes like, my parents did that, and wait, that means Grandpa was Zeus? That actually explains a lot. Which basically Belle's look at it basically very, very, very confused because he's going back on some memories and just like he goes, yep, it makes a lot of sense. In which, basically, he hears the outsider chuckle. He goes, now, you see? Which basically, well, Bell just looks and goes like, okay, so you show me all this. What do you get out of it? He goes, oh, if you accept my power, you basically become stronger very quickly. Probably way more stronger than your canon self. But, to be fair, my powers, well, the powers you gain from me, are going to be very unique. You see, I would basically give it on your personality and basically what your decisions and everything else, but you, specifically, have too much similarities between two people. Which he goes, what do you mean? He goes, Corvo and Emily. Wait, what? It was Corvo Otano and Emily Cauldron. Two people I gave my gift to. Two people, very interesting, and have caught my attention. And two people that I basically have seen. One has basically saved you could say, saved the kingdom and his daughter. While another one saved their father and a kingdom and took down basically someone evil. Which basically Bell is just blinking as he goes on to Bell explain Corvo and Emily and basically what they did. He really basically does say he did explain this in the first, how he explained who he is and what does he do. So he goes like, wait, so you mean when you said you basically gave your mark to two individuals that basically were very interesting to watch, you meant them? He basically would nod. And then he basically goes on to say, and now I want to give that mark to you. You basically would have at least some of their abilities, probably most. But you basically have to basically upgrade them or access them through, well, I wish they would use bone, basically, runes and, well, some basically tablets that have my my mark on them. But since basically we don't have that here, and there's no whales, basically, whale basically ribs or basically tusks or, well, anything, I basically have to figure out how to use monster parts to create basically these said upgrade basically runes to allow you basically to access your basically new abilities. And when Bell's just blinking, he was like, okay. So, bone talismans? He goes, that's gonna be easily done. But for now, since you haven't accepted my gift, I can't basically explain much. Which Bell just looks at him and he goes like, just sighs and be like, what do I have to lose? In which the outsider smirks, as then something appears on Bell's left hand, a mark, the mark of the outsider. And where she goes, good. Now then, though, as the outsider disappears for a moment and then appears in front of Bell, he goes, let's break this seal for you. And then he just touches Bell's chest, and then all of a sudden, Bell hears a crack and just basically, yes, what was the seal broke. Now then, you have gained basically something. Something basically with the skill you have gotten. He goes, Realis freeze? He goes, yes. Because when I saw in your eyes, you were basically, well, shocked by basically Corvo and Emily. Now then, let me tell you what type of level would they be if they were in this world. Corvo, when I gave him the mark, would have been a level 9. Easily. Be able to surpass basically most people here. But in his old age, basically normally he would have been probably, level 14. But since basically with the more levels you go up and basically your aging process slows down here, that level 14 basically would still be in his age, where he was still when he got the mark. And well, basically when he's old age, maybe even level 20 or basically level 30. Emily would basically be level 15 with the, level 10 with the mark, and the old age would be level 15, but same thing, maybe it should be, level 40 than Corvo. Which, basically, Bell his eyes wide and basically goes like, wow. He goes, yes, I usually give my mark, and basically they become assassins. But for you, we could still make you be an adventurer, and still have assassin basically like skills. Which basically Belle's just blinking. He's like, "Wait, assassins?" He goes, "Yes, but to be fair, who I give my power to is my choice, but what they do with it, it's theirs, not mine. I'm only a watcher and an observer, nothing more, nothing else." So basically, Belle just looks at him and goes like, "So what about me then?" He goes, "Well, since you're the very first person in this world to actually have my mark now, there's going to be a slight difference in my approach. I will watch and observe, but I also will, well, be interacting much with you on it. It basically means I'll be coming and helping you out from time to time. You were the very first person to ever have the power of the the void, on his side. Each being basically honored, Belle Cornell. But now you must wake up. And I will appear basically to you and Freya when the time is needed. Oh, and you should basically take on Freya's basically proposal. After all. Wait, I forgot to show you some things. Basically, he kind of just snaps his fingers and shows basically Hestia. Hestia's thought process is being shown to Belle, and basically how after he left she was crying, while Belle's basically kind of shocked, basically that she cared for him that much and even was in love with him. And basically he did kind of realize that from basically his canon self, but he didn't think basically this one did too, because he thought it was different, which that's the reason why she basically kicked him out of her family, because she loved him. But in a sense, though, when he's looking at it, he basically has a look of basically indifference, no emotion, basically no expression of face. But the outsider can tell he basically has a conflict in his basically eyes. He puts a hand on Belle and just says, "It is human nature to have this feeling. She abandoned you instead of basically trying to help you. Well, helped you more than this. Try to figure out why you weren't leveling up as quickly in status points. But let me show you how Freya is." As that, he basically see how Freya is and her plan. And now this. And he's like, "So you're telling me she would have tried to take me from Hestia, try to get me on her side, try to help me out, but she's basically full on freaking like, she wants me as a partner in love or something, kind of like a fling." Which basically he goes, "Well, somewhat." Which he's like, "Huh?" He goes, "Well, this Freya," as he basically points to Canon Bell, "she cares for him a lot and basically would want him basically a part of her familia. But for yours, she had exactly the same plan, but you were basically, well, a child, and basically she was basically willing to wait till you get stronger and try to help out whenever she could, and exactly the same as Canon Freya, basically wait, but she didn't know where you were for 2 months, and hold up. Okay, sorry about that. I think I was at basically about him basically spelling how this canon for you. Yeah, she was searching for you for she didn't know where you were for 2 months, kept on looking for you, and, well, she found you, and after she heard it, she decided her plan basically didn't matter, and, well, she tried to get to know you. And throughout that whole entire year, she basically, well, I don't know basically her feelings for you, Belle, but she basically may have fallen in love with you, or at least more in love. Who knows? Which you're like, "You're not gonna tell me, huh?" He was like, "I cannot show you everything, or tell you everything. What would be the fun of that?" He just smiles at Belle. He's like, "Ah." Which basically the outsider says, "Wake up now," and just basically Belle just wakes up. He's like, that had to be a dream, right? That, had to. He basically put, will be rubbing his face with his left hand, but then he'll take, take his hand off his face and look at his left hand, and he will see the mark. He was like, "Nope, I have it. Great. Well, this is gonna be interesting." So, in this case, Belle will get up, stretch, do everything he needs to do, and then basically would go down, basically, and he would see basically Mamma Mia there. And she goes, "Hello, Belle," but she goes, "Hey, hold up." Okay, as I was saying, he says, "Hey, morning." She goes, "So, what do you want for breakfast?" He goes, anything." She would just nod and such, basically give him some eggs, bacon, toast, milk, rice, basically, and some fish. And he would say thank you and just eat. So, basically, yeah, so, when is Freya going to be here? Which, basically, Mom Mia looks at him and just saying, "Who knows?" Which he just shrugs me like, do I just wait here? She would nod. He's like, "Alright." So basically, after breakfast, he asks if she needs any help, setting up and basically get everything ready, as basically, everyone's coming in, like Rita and the two cat girls. And basically she would say, yeah, he can basically do something in a while. So he does what he would usually do: wash the dishes, clean the tables, sweep around, even go outside and do it. And which, well, that afternoon, probably around like 12, lunch, basically Belle would have gone around the place and just basically look at stuff. Probably look at basically weapon shop around Hestia. You like, I really want one of these. The swords look pretty good, but the daggers though, well, knives. So that's what he did. He just went window shopping, didn't really buy anything. So he got back, it was near lunch, and that's when, well, Freya comes in, along with Otar. As everyone's just whispering, like, "Look, it's Scottish Freya." Basically saying, I'm like, wow, she's really beautiful in person. Another guy saying, like, if only basically she could have been my girlfriend. As other guy just basically bumps his shoulder, be like, "Dude, she's a goddess. She can basically probably have anyone she wants." Which another one would say, like, who do you think she's here for? Which another one says, "I don't know." And, well, when basically she'll arrive at Belle's table, she asks, "Can I sit here?" He'll just basically like, "Go right ahead." She would nod, basically, and she would sit down. Otar would be right beside her. She goes, "So, Belle Cornell, what do you think of my offer?" Which Belle's like, "Man, I think it's pretty good." She goes, "Alright, so will you join me?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't really mind." Which Otar basically just kind of basically says, "You don't mind? This is only what you're getting, boy. You should basically say thank you to Goddess Freya." Which everyone's kind of basically just like wondering what's going on. As then Belle goes like, "Oh, should I call her Goddess Freya now?" Which basically Otar's getting a little bit annoyed. Which she's about to say something, goes like, "I think she's something else." Which Otar asks, "What is it?" Even Freya's kind of curious. He goes, "Sassy goddess?" Just shrug at it. Basically, everyone just in complete shock. Freya is actually shocked, but then actually starts laughing in amusement. Which Otar cannot believe the audacity of him saying that. Which he's just about to say something, but Freya basically, when she's laughed, he's actually confused. She goes, "Wow, you really have changed, huh?" He goes, I learned from the best. Besides, you are sassy at times." She basically just says, "Well, I can't help it. Sometimes basically you can be a little bit annoying." And he just, kind of just has a smirk on her face when he says it. And he goes like, "Well, excuse me, goddess. Don't mean to be annoying sometimes when you keep on constantly asking me to do something for you." Which just Otar kind of understands. That's how they interact with each other. And now he can't help but actually just like think, so, this is how they act. Which everyone just shot that Belle and Freya just like having this like weird conversation that shouldn't have been happening like this. So he goes, "Well, enough of the small talk." He goes, "Yeah, so let me guess. You want me to join and basically join your basically familia?" She goes, "We'll talk more about that in private without anyone listen in. But yes, I want you to join." But she looks at me, Mom and me, and she goes, "Can we use a room?" Which basically she would nod, just say head upstairs. Which Belle would. Freya and Otar, as they basically go into his room, Otar looks around, sees basically, well, some things like basically a dresser, some pictures, seeing basically Belle, Seer, Mamiya, Ryu, and two cat girls basically having a picture together of his basically, probably looks like his first week at the job, as Belle still has that look of basically like a little basically anger showing and basically cautiousness around them. And eventually, though, he does see basically other things like books, basically drawings, and well, I would say just like some other hobbies, probably like wood carving or something. Which Otar's basically kind of a little bit like, impressed. Which Belle would just say, just basically would take off his shirt, as basically Freya would just, give him her blessing. In which she'll be shocked. She was like, what the? You're supposed to be, starting at level I. Well, stats should be like I rank, but now it's G? Which Belle's like, yeah, here's the reason why, and all of a sudden, the cold basicalliness came back, that feeling of cold, and basically emptiness, as Belle goes like, he's here. Which Freya is like, who? As Otar gets on guard, as basically, then, well, the outsider says, do not be alarmed, adventurer Otar. I mean you or your goddess no harm. Which Belle's like, hello outsider. Basically, he's still sitting in basically his chair. Well, he would have been sitting in a chair, which Freya's just looking at because the outsider would appear right in front of the door. She goes, outsider? He goes, yes, I will give you a brief explanation of who I am. I am someone not from this world, but I've been here for 50 years. I've seen basically the dawn of basically the adventurers were being born, so basically the mercenaries have been around. Well, near the end of their period. I have basically also seen this young man who basically came here and, well, has been interested in his fate, such as yours. Well, yours is his potential and his basically soul, so basically pure and, well, or was so pure and basically, how should I say, transparent. Now it's still pure, but non-transparent no more, correct? Which basically Belle's like, oh yeah, I forgot she could see souls. Well, the color of them at least. Which she's like, huh? Which Otar's actually kind of confused, which basically the outsider chuckling saying, that will be my fault. So, you basically probably have noticed Belle's mark, but you have not said anything, which Freya was like, actually, no. Which basically Belle was just showing, goes like, you should be curious, goes, that's my mark. A power that I basically, well, you could say powers that began to be given to him through this mark, which will basically be magic, so it's really no troubles. But I must explain to you what has happened. In which basically he basically does show, well, them about the basically Zeus Familia and the Hera Familia members. Basically, he's their kid, and basically how the mother put basically a seal on his soul so that way he would not gain that much XP if he ever becomes an adventurer. In which Belle goes like, yep. And so he basically unsealed it, and that's probably the reason why my, wait, what are my stats? She goes, G rank besides magic. I think. Which basically the outsider would come over and was like, ah, yes, it's basically his magic is just being accessed about now. As basically the magic basically starts to be shown. She basically goes like, why is it 0? Goes like, well, sorry about that. He goes, well, because it would take time for him to gain it. It's not like right away, like basically what you would get from a grimoire. He has to basically gain a little bit basically of it by basically fighting monsters or resting or such, just waiting for time. So right now it's at 0, but it will be G rank probably 240. Which basically she's just like blinking. Which Otar's like, why him of all people though? You and basically Goddess Freya basically seem to think of highly of him. Which basically, well, Belle was actually kind of curious. Which the outsider goes, she's interested in his potential and his personality and, well, everything of him. Me, I'm interested in his basically future and basically well, of his potential, what he can do, especially with my power, my help. I want to see him rise and basically entertain, entertain me while I'm watching this world, since I have never given to anyone else in this world besides my old one. Which basically Freya would just kind of basically look at him and goes, and you want Bell to achieve what? He was his full potential. It would be such a waste, don't you think? Which she would nod, and he goes, oh, yes, he also knows about your little, basically, plan that you had for him. But since basically Hestia abandoned him, he basically threw that all away. Which basically Freya looks at Bell, he just nods. And so he goes, now then, Bell, I want to warn you. Which he goes, warn me about what? Remember Lily? Which he just basically goes, oh yeah, the girl that's gonna betray me? Yes. Everything basically from the story point of your canon self happens a year later here. So, since basically you were back into the story, everything what happened is actually the same. Which he goes like, great, so I'm gonna have to basically actually care for basically someone that's gonna betray me and try to steal from me. Wait, I don't have the Hestia knife then. Which basically the outsider would nod. He was like, yes, but there's more to her story than that. You'll find out later. Don't not worry. She becomes very close to you in the future, though. In which, basically, Belle looks at Freya. She has no, basically, reaction like Hestia did that he saw the can itself. Where she looks and goes like, and tilts her head like, what? He goes, why are you not saying, basically, he's only mine? She goes, oh. She takes a thinking thought. She goes, well, I'm not going to basically say you basically can't basically find someone else to like. Besides, she just shrugs, be like, I'm not Hestia. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm the only one for you. Which, yeah, that just makes him blink. He was like, huh. Okay, thanks. She would just nod. He goes, now then, Belle, I must tell you, you only have two abilities to activate. Normally it will only be blink, which you have for Corvo. But I'm giving you basically agility and, wow. Which basically is like, wait, agility? You mean like the stats? Goes, oh, no. Ability that allows you basically to jump in the air and move faster and swim faster. If you get to level 2, you're able to do another double jump. Which he's like, and bloodthirsty. That's basically what have you basically able to execute strong attacks. And basically level 2 will be multiple times, but I made it a little bit different for you. Which he's just blinking, is like, huh? He goes, you able to basically use this multiple times, basically, bloodthirsty, basically, easily. It's only basically after you kill so many enemies, so don't worry. So he does nod, though. He goes, anyways, I'll be going now. You two have a lot to discuss. Goodbye, Belle Cronell. When we meet again, as basically the outsider disappears. Freya looks at Belle looks at Freya, goes like, so, where am I staying? She goes, well, my, familia, basically, may have some problems with you, since, well, Ozarden says, because basically her eyes have been on you. Most of the familiar members will be jealous of you. He goes, oh. So, you can stay here, or I can basically give you a place. Which Belle would think, actually, I'd rather stay here. Can I also still have my job here? She would not, be like, of course. This means just basically you and me can spend some time together still. And he's just blinking. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot for a minute you're seer too. She goes, uh-huh. So? He goes, alright. She also then says, we're also going to buy you some equipment for you to go into the dungeon, but that'll be for later. Okay? Which he does not. Which he basically then asks, so why basically not now? She goes, oh, simple. I want to go as seer, and not have anyone basically, well, my guard, Otar near me, to give me away, and plus, I need to go to the Adventure Hall basically to register you. But first, she basically looks at Belle seriously, get a haircut. Belle's like, huh? You need a haircut. You haven't basically cut your hair in over a year. It's time for you to get a haircut. Which Belle's like, it's fine. She goes, "You be keeping it up in a man bun." He's like, I just thought Belle would kind of have long hair, but since it gets away his work, he would just kind of put in like a ponytail or just like a man bun. So I thought man bun would work. He goes, uh, fine. She goes, good. I'm gonna be helping you with that tomorrow too. He's like, wow, you're acting like you're my girlfriend or something. She just tilts her head, be like, well, maybe because I just want to help you out a lot, and maybe I eventually do. He goes like, he just basically suddenly just pats her head, just like he normally would as her in her seer form, which she's just like, because she's a little bit taller than him. Well, she's taller than him and such by so much, I think. She just kind of face goes a little bit red. He's like, thank you. And there. She's like, what was that for? He's like, you're basically always worried about me, so now I understand why. Which Otar just can't help but have amusement in his eyes. As basically Belle just looks at him and Otar looks at him. He goes like, I promise I won't let the Freya Familia basically reputation go down because of me. Basically Otar just nods. And so she goes like, well, we better be going. See you tomorrow, Belle. She basically goes like, yeah. Wait, don't you mean tonight? She goes, oh, I took off today. I got a lot of work I gotta do because of you. Paperwork, that is. In which she just sighs, but like, yeah, see ya. She basically would not, and they would leave. In which, basically, Otar would come back in, which then basically he's like, huh, what do you want? As basically he just gives Belle basically a dagger. One knife, basically. He was like, I heard from Freya, basically, you're good. You basically use knives. Here. Which basically he gives it to Belle, which he's just blinking. Belle says, thanks. He goes, we're going to be training you how to use basically swords. And basically any other weapons. Got it? Basically, Belle would nod slowly, but then Otar, basically, when he turns around, he would notice a book. He goes like, what's that? He goes, oh, that's just a book some adventurers gave me a long time ago. A year ago, I think. Which he would go and grab it and see basically their basically tips and everything. Which he goes, have you used these? Or try to learn them? He was like, no. I didn't trust them enough. But they did give me a good workout plan that would help me out to get some muscle. Which basically just blinks and he looks back at it and back at Belle. He goes like, this could help you. I will basically look at them. Which basically just throws it to Belle. He catches it and that's when Otar leaves. So Belle decided to basically look at the book now and read it. And that's where I'm going to leave it off for everyone, because I do have to basically charge my phone. I do have to go to work soon too. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this. You guys have a nice day, night, wherever you are, and bye.